there's a lot that you do that is not, necessarily understood. And to your point about a dealer should understand what the goal is you have in mind. If you had to boil it down to that sort of one statement, what would you say?
All we want is we want to help that dealer become a solid business person. I think partnership, a good business partner, is what you should be thinking of your independent rep every time that you see him come by.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. Let's talk about the role of a rep firm. In the world of custom integration and the CI channel, rep firms have been around for years and seen their role in the industry evolve over time. And to do so, to dive into the role of the rep, we wanted to make sure we had a very sound and well-educated source. So we turned to Joaquin Rivera, who's co-founder of By Design Vision and Sound Marketing, a firm with about 10 years under its belt in the Southern California region of the country, and representing a very deep line card of some pretty well-established brands out there, in that market, and a guy who has a longer history as well within the CI space, and started his tenure, his career in Stewart Film Screens, and just a well-rounded background, having worked with and for and running rep firms out there. So he's seen it all. He's seen the role of the rep evolve over time, and from what it was years ago, just out there, getting their business partners or dealers, the integrators, educated and qualified to what they're doing today, and having a stronger role, a more important role in the world of education. So diving into it all with Joaquin, talking about some misconceptions in the space and some of the challenges they face today as a rep firm, getting in the doors with dealers, and having them understand that they are the good guy. They're there on your behalf. Yes, they work with a bunch of manufacturer partners, but and they're trying to sell, but they win when you win, essentially. So diving into all that with Joaquin and starting some really important conversations, ones that I know he's been looking forward to having and wanting to have, within the industry. So wanted to provide that platform for him to maybe kick them off. So this is Joaquin Rivera of By Design Vision and Sound Marketing here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast and jumping into, I think, a first of its kind appearance on our podcast. We get to talk to a rep firm, which, hang with us, right? Right, Joaquin, hang with us. That's, as people hear that word, it means something to some people. So we want to make sure, we are doing our best here today to show off the awesome things, a world that, very fun to dive into. And who better to do it with than Joaquin Rivera of By Design Vision and Sound Marketing, right?
That is correct.
Is correct. All right. Co-founder of that business. Are you coming up on a decade yet? 15, 16?
2014.
14.
So,
I was close. I was in the ballpark.
Yeah, so about 6 more months.
Okay. You're getting there. See that? That's awesome. Well, appreciate you taking the time and coming on the podcast. Nice to catch up with old friends in this industry too, man. That's always a good time for me.
That's what this industry, I think, it's all about. In most cases, and I think it's critical for a lot of people to understand that it's not really about the product. I mean, the product has to do its job, but it really comes down to the people. No one in this industry really goes anywhere else. They may go away for a few months and try something different, and then they realize that, hey, you know what? I miss it. Come back.
I noticed that so often about this space is that, you think of the brands and the names that are out there, and there's some big ones, but at the end of the day, it feels like it's the same 100 people, like all talking to one another. It's just where are you now, and what are you doing, and who's it for? And it's always fun to have those conversations and catch up with people. But appreciate getting to do it with you today in a podcast setting. But for those that don't know, introduce yourself, talk about your background and path to co-founding By Design for us.
So I think I've had a blast in this industry. Not I think, I know for a fact. I started a while back in the 90s with Stewart Film Screen. And of course, we were able to flourish Stewart Film Screen. I believe that we did a great job with the team of not necessarily building the brand, because the brand was a very well-known brand in other markets, such as the film industry, uh, government, simulation, because of what he did. So I was a VP of sales there, and it was a great learning experience. I was young. I was having fun traveling throughout the world, um, and hiring the distributors, reps, um, the distribution for all vertical markets for that Stewart Film Screen dealt with. And as I said, so a big factor of that, or compensating for me, was the fact that I was able to create some really strong relationships with people throughout the world. That to me always means more than money. So I had a blast doing that. The downfall of that is that I was out on the road over 80% of the time. I would say close to 90, because of course we had offices in other countries, Middle East, uh, uh, Singapore, Denmark, and then we had distributors. Stewart has so many vertical markets
Yeah.
that we had a lot of distributors throughout every country. And if you think about it, just the one channel, which is the Cydia channel, is extremely um, taxing, meaning that there's a lot of opportunities. And so dealing with that, Infocom, all the variable markets, it was just at a certain point, it became too much. And I was just tired of traveling. And so that's, I think that's one of the reasons why I started contemplating and becoming a rep. But yeah, been in this business since the 90s, late 90s, and lucky enough that I built a lot of good relationships and a lot of people that could actually give me guidance. Some of us, as you know, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and being able to have friends that you can call on to I guess help out with your weaknesses became a big deal for me. So, it's a loved industry, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I feel like we talked not long ago about all that travel and kind of what it's done, and I feel like we're almost back. It feels like back to that, right? We had the conversation. It was around the pandemic and everything that had done to travel, and it feels like pre that everyone was kind of getting. I feel like everyone had your feeling, right? Like there's a lot of events, a lot of travel, and a little fatigue. Then we all missed it, and then it
And
got back to it, right? And then it was great to come out of it and start seeing people again. And then, but now it's like there's a lot of interest in having events and things like that, and getting people to go, and for brands and everyone in between, right? It can be a little taxing for all the requests of getting you to go to different things and whatnot.
yes, as a manufacturer, of course, you're not only need to go and hire and interview new distributors, new reps, but also you have to make the buying group events.
Yeah.
And there is a couple of those, a couple a year per buying group. There is the all the trade shows, whether it's simulation,
Yeah.
Infocom, Cydia. We used to have a lot more training in this channel. And so that would include the Cydia regionals, that would include other opportunities at other partners, such as, like for the screening, projection screen would be projector manufacturer would be put in events. Or back in the days, there was a dealer in Seattle that used to do the definitive home theater event, which was, it's a must. It was a must. So there were a lot more things to do back when I started.
Yeah.
And it was fun, but at the same time, as I said, it was
A lot could
taxing
be.
to your personal life and the body.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
but
So,
but it was fun.
yeah, yeah. So talk about that decision to go, out on your own and what that was like. In the into the rep world and kind of do what you're doing and start by design.
Excuse me. Um, I was just a little. I was not tired of the what I was doing because I love what I did. Excuse me. But as I said, I was tired of all the traveling. So, interesting enough, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And at that point, I remember vividly, I landed in Florida to go and work with one of our reps in that area, the residential rep. And one of my residential reps in Southern California calls me up, and he had been my rep forever. And that is, at that point, was MK Marketing. So Mike Kavanagh calls me up and says, "Hey, I need to give you my 30-day notice." And of course, that kind of was shocking because he was most of the times the rep of the year. And so I asked him, "So what did we do wrong?" And he's like, "Oh no, it's I'm actually becoming savant." So at that point, he was closing his doors, and I started interviewing reps for the territory. And overnight, something just hit me. It's like, why don't you do it? You get stay in the industry. Your travel is going to be cut back by 90%. You get to deal with manufacturers that you enjoy dealing with. So that was on a Friday night. About probably 11 o'clock, I started creating my business plan. On Saturday, I had a meeting with Benito, and I asked them, "Hey, I'm doing this. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pay you. So because of that, I'm willing to give you, part of it if you come with." And he agreed to that. On Monday, I gave Stewart Film Screen my 2 weeks notice, but I did ask if I could interview for the line for the territory. And and so that was agreed upon. And of course, then I got two more lines, and that started by design.
Wow.
So at the beginning, it was Benito and myself in dealing with Southern California, Arizona, Vegas, and Hawaii. So that was almost 10 years ago, and it's come a long way.
Yeah, well, I love too that it's like that you remember down to the day and time of like how it all came together, and not even just that, but how quick it is too. Like the fact that it came together almost over a weekend, like that's incredible to me.
Yeah, and it was scary because, of
Yeah,
course, when you work for a manufacturer, then it was good pay, and you know exactly how you're going to spend your money. When you're going to go on your own, you don't know where that pay is going to come from.
right.
Um, but though, as I said before, I pride on being able throughout the time to have built some really strong relationships. I reached out to a couple of our business partners, dealers, and asked for advice. And till now, they are still around giving me advice. And so it's worked out. It's honestly worked out. I would say like a dream. Um, it's not a job for everybody, but to me, it's a perfect
Yeah.
fit to a
Oh,
certain degree.
it's
Yeah.
awesome. We'll get into the whys, but what kind of, when you think about what by design stands for and what you're doing today, is there any sort of differentiator, for what you do as opposed to other firms that are out there? Or it could be, even if it's, one territory versus another, like just something that you guys do differently that you think separates you and sets you apart.
I think in our territory it does. I would say that it's challenging. Excuse me, it's challenging to answer that. But one of the things that we do, we manage projects, meaning that all of the brands that we have create a puzzle. And so we manage a project, and our other partners or rep firms around, they do an amazing job of managing brands. And so how is that different? For us, as I said, I believe that brands definitely matter. But I think that in many cases, if you have a product that fits or has a little bit more flexibility than others, that will give a very good chance in custom projects. And so all the brands that well, not all the brands, but most of the brands that we have has that differentiation that we enjoy, that it allows us to be very custom per se. Meaning, for example, if it is a projector, most projectors you would have to have center of the screen. With ours, you could put the projector all the way on the side. You mount it up with mirrors. You have a whole lot of flexibility on positioning. Therefore, you have flexibility on design, positioning, as well as brightness. So we're always looking for that uniqueness on a brand. And I'll tell you that was critical for us. I've always liked a differentiator, right? I always believe that the customers that our dealers work for, yes, they are unique. They want to be different. So how can we, with a brand, help to differentiate them?
Right.
So that to me, it's always been critical. It allows us to market ourselves, in a certain way, that it becomes to a certain degree memorable.
Yeah, and that kind of, I think, gets at what I was going to ask next. And I think still interesting to hear. It will be interesting to hear your approach to this. But when you, whether it's you going out looking or a brand approaches you, as far as figuring out whether it's a brand that you want to welcome. I mean, you guys you mentioned it, an impressive portfolio of brands, and they kind of have they all fit a need within that custom integration space. And you can look at it from end to end in any project. And I love your analogy of a puzzle. It fits perfectly. I didn't, no pun intended. It fits perfectly into kind of what an integrator would want to do in a home. But when you're evaluating a brand, is there certain things you look for to determine whether it's one that you want to add to that portfolio?
Oh, definitely. We, as I said earlier, we're a little bit different. So we are always looking for that. First of all, that brand has to fit that puzzle because, of course, later on, hopefully we could get into the business side. But a rep cannot afford to have that many brands that make no sense. Every brand has to be part of a solution. So when you come to one of your business partners, you can give them one solution, not a whole bunch of brands. And the reason for that is, of course, it makes it easier to sell, but also it makes it easier for your sales team to get good at all the brands. Because, of course, you have to know the why that one brand. So, of course, a perfect fit on the brand. Also, we're looking for the uniqueness of the brand because I am extremely proud of our line card. It's only been almost 10 years, but the line card that we have is for a firm that has been around for a long time, I believe. So a perfect fit, not only on the brand, but also the people. To us, as I said before, it's all about the people. And if we don't work well with the sales manager, then it doesn't work for us. And because at the end of the day, we like to introduce our sales managers to the dealers because we want that connection. It's so much easier to, ask the manufacturer, hey, Mark has a need for this. can you help? And the manufacturer knows Mark, immediately they will jump at helping. So we want to make sure that the people could actually connect. That helps us a great deal. And
Yeah.
overall, the brand has to be not just the brand, but it has to be a package, meaning that the product has to work. And if it doesn't work, the people have to step up to support it, because it is electronics. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. There is no brand out there that is never going to fail.
Right.
Um, there are some brands that have less chances of failing, such as, let's say, a seat. We
Hmm.
do a theater seating from Cinematech, and
Yep.
a seat. What can happen, right? Yeah, they're motorized, some, but that's unusual. A speaker, the chances of it going wrong are less than, let's say, a control system, or let's say perhaps a receiver. Um, Anyhow, so the package is not just the product, it's the people, it's the how it fits within the package that you want to deliver, and make sure that the manufacturer has the resources,
Yeah.
um, for you to be able to do your job well. So we've been, as I said earlier, I am extremely proud of the brands that we carry, the line card.
Yeah.
And we have amazing relationships with every single one of those manufacturers. So we gotten really, really lucky.
No, it's awesome. And I mean, you mentioned it. It looks like one for crazy to think you've only been around not even a decade. Looking at the names that are on that brand page, for you guys, and makes me want to dive deeper. But before we do, I want to kind of go back and, for those that have been listening to this point and kind of wondering to themselves, well, what is a rep firm? Like what do they do? For the listeners out there that might not be aware or understand. I kind of want to go back to the basics of kind of by asking you, what is the role of a rep firm today?
It's definitely changed over the years.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, this is why this is, I believe it's critical for our channel to understand what reps do. And of course, how to utilize the reps more. So the job for the rep firm is now it's not as simple, but it's supposed to be to qualify dealers, meaning that we have multiple brands, right? Let's say you take one brand and let's say you have 400 dealers in your territory. That brand you're not going to be able to sell to every integrator. It's not a fit with everybody.
Hmm.
Some will sell higher end products, so that brand may not be a fit, or some uh, will just have a relationship over the years with other brand. So that may not be, so they will not be able to support it financially. So that's not a good fit. Anyhow, so the goal is for the rep to qualify a business partner. Now, once you qualify it, to make sure that it's a good fit for the brand, onboard them, train them, keep them informed, and get them and make sure that you get involved with them on projects, especially at the beginning as they are learning the brand, to make sure that there is no mistake made. Um, on top of that, of course, we're supposed to go in there and give them marketing materials, make sure that they understand if there's any kind of specials or um, uh, uh, make sure that if there is an issue, um, the man the manufacturers, many manufacturers have different departments according to what it is. If it's accounting issue, there is a
Hmm.
certain person that you call for accounting, RMAs, production,
Hmm.
sales. So anyhow, the dealer's job is extremely difficult. I believe that they're artists. And the reason for that is because you're taking 50 products, brands, that unfortunately in our channel, none of the brands want to work cohesively. They all want to have their own
Yep.
little thing, right? So it seems like they're working against each other. Well, the dealer has to be able to put that puzzle together and make it fit perfectly. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if it's off a little bit, you will not be able to control or achieve what the end user wanted.
Right.
So by doing that, which we believe is extremely challenging, um, we want to make sure that they don't have to learn all those 20 contacts per manufacturer. Just call your rep, whatever
Right.
issue it is, call your rep, and it just becomes efficient. One of the things that also is not necessarily um, perhaps understood, that rep is getting paid whether you use them or not. That rep, that's if you're selling the product,
Right.
but the rep has your best interest at hand. Believe me, because their job is to make sure that you're successful. Because if you don't sell it, they're not eating.
Right.
So their job
Right.
is to help the dealers grow. There is nothing else. It's to make sure that their dealers grow. That's a big. I mean, that's an additional employee that the dealers have. So I
The
think that they should be taking advantage of that.
yeah, the way I mean, we kind of I think talked about this too in the past. Is it almost feels like, as a buying group, right? We're sitting here in between manufacturers and dealers, and offering a lot of resources to the dealer to go out and do their jobs and perform well. And that dealers join a buying group for certain reasons to get access to product. It almost feels like from where we sit, like you're doing it just on the opposite end, right? Like you're working with a bunch of vendors and manufacturers out there and getting their resources to dealers. It's almost like we kind of sit in a similar seat, right? Like helping with education, helping with the materials they need. It's just, from a slightly different angle and obviously territorial based as well. So a lot of similarities and synergies, I think, between kind of what, but for different purposes, right? So like between what you're doing and what a buying group's doing. So I mean, maybe for those out there, can you explain the difference?
Well, I don't know if there's a whole lot of a difference there as well, though, because if you
Yeah.
think about it, um, there's two ways to go to market for manufacturers, right? One way would be direct, and the other one through independent reps. Now, the challenges of being direct, now you have to have the sales force. Their pay is going to be the same pay, whether you sell or don't sell anything, that person is getting paid. Secondly, that person has one brand to go and knock on dealers' doors with. So
Hmm.
the dealers are busy. If they're busy, they're just busy with jobs. They're
Right.
busy. If they're not busy, they're busy out there trying to sell and fill up the pipeline. So, and of course, not only do you have one brand, but if you want the dealer's attention, that brand has to be continuously changing in
Right.
order for them to make the time to understand what's new. A independent rep only makes a percentage of what is sold. So that's a big factor. Secondly, they have other brands that are, in most cases, critical to their business partners. So if for example, a business partner, and by the way, business partner, a dealer,
Yeah.
um, if he calls you for a screen for a theater per se, all right, we then talk about Cinematech, then we talk about Barco, then we talk about Stewart, then Pro Audio, then so it's not just one brand, it's the entire package.
Right.
So because of that, you become to a certain degree, one brand brings the other one in. Um, because of that, when we bring a new brand, hey, by the way, I know we're talking about this brand, but we just started representing this brand, and I think you should look at it because A, B, C, D, and F. Um, so, excuse me. So anyhow, I believe that once the decision has been made as to whether you're going to go direct or with a rep firm, then you have to consider in buying groups, you have to let me see if I could explain that better. A buying group, your job and my job are almost the same because at the end, at the end of the day, well, your outside salespeople,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you are asking dealers to sell more so they can save more.
Right.
But at the end of the day, guess who's responsible to achieve those sales? The outside sales
Right.
firms.
Yep.
Okay. So I believe, and this is how this started, right? That I reached out to you
Yeah.
saying, hey, wait, you want our goals to be achieved. But when you're doing an event, reps are not there.
Right.
So no offense on a sales manager, because most of the times they have a big chunk of the country, but they're not up to speed with all the projects. So the conversation in most cases will be a bit more about hello, how are you, and um, a very high level conversation.
Yeah.
If the rep was part of that conversation, then now you can talk about projects. Now you become a sales productive meeting. And I think everybody wins at that point.
Yeah. No, that
So,
makes sense.
so I think that is we we kind of do the same thing. We share, and I think that because of that, if we could all push the same direction with the same agenda, we could actually achieve what manufacturers are asking for.
Right.
And
Which is
that's a big deal for the dealers as well.
right. Which I mean, they're all looking to get their product in front of people, right? At the end of the day. So if they had the more people they have sort of, out there, um, you know, talking about them and helping dealers understand the importance of you know product A, product B, whatever it might be. It's just more people, more resources in the field for that manufacturer, and then at the end of the day it's the dealer too. They're able to offer a solution or a package, a full puzzle, if you will, to their customers in their markets. And at the end of the day, they're winning because they have a customer who's happy that they're able to complete a project for, and you bring it back to the manufacturer. They're happy because their product is in that consumer's home now, so that it becomes a win-win, right, for all involved.
That is correct. I think that unfortunately, though, and I appreciate you guys making the time for this, because
Yeah.
um, we do need to address as an industry, we do need to address the positioning of independent sales reps. We go way back. I was pretty involved with iPro back in days when I was at Stewart Film Screen, because I do believe, as I said before, I was one individual managing the whole world in a whole bunch of vertical markets. I was not a salesperson. My
Right.
salespeople were my independent reps. And for manufacturers in our channel, I only know one manufacturer that was successful at going direct, and they're a control manufacturer. Um, so even Crestron had reps. So there is not one brand that has been successful going direct
Right.
in our channel that is
Yeah.
around. And there's many reasons behind that. As I said before, a rep already works with a certain amount of integrators. As soon as they have the line, they're not going to overnight, start selling a lot.
Right.
But overnight, all of their reps, excuse me, all of their dealers are going to be aware that that brand exists, and then they're going to start to do trainings, whether it's at their facility, or start choosing dealers to go to the dealer that you think it's going to be a fit with.
Right.
Um, so that is going to, well, first of all, the manufacturer, um, if they go direct, that will just it just would probably take a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, lean into the resources that are out there that, through groups or firms like By Design that, are there to support and, put your sort of your tentacles in areas of the country and regions where, if you have reach or not, it's just more support out in the field for you, and makes it. Well, how I'm curious, you're doing the work today. And you obviously have experience in the past working with firms like you mentioned with when your time with Stewart. How, in what I'm sure, and you even mentioned, I think word for word, that the role has changed of the rep firm. So what was it like, back then when you were working at Stewart? Like, what was the role of the rep firm then, and how is it different from kind of what you're out there doing today?
So I think that we knew, as I said, that the rep's job was to do on board. Well, first of all, as a manufacturer, you depend on your rep to bring you or make a match with the right business partner.
Hmm.
That is so critical to make that match. That I think is being taken for granted now. But so you make that match, and then you do the onboarding and you do the training. Now we got hit with a couple of financial, let's say, recessions, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, everybody cut back, whether it is in marketing, whether it is in order processing or technical support or training. So that was really never brought back from manufacturers. Also, back in the days, every integrator to become a dealer, they had to go in with most manufacturers. You had to go all the way for a 3-day training.
Right.
You had to buy product to do in a showroom. And now, at least in Southern California, there is no showrooms any longer. There is, I would say, there's probably 8 in the entire territory, and certainly, and it may be because it's freaking expensive,
Right.
so that hurts us. Also, there used to be a lot from manufacturers. There used to be a lot of training going on, not only the CDR regionals, and they were pretty effective, but also, let's say, the good old days. Sam Runkel, he used to have 9 trainings, residential trainings. DPI used to have a whole bunch of trainings. Sony, Stewart Filmscreen had 9. ISF, Joel Silver was all over the place. He had a whole in the Army training on ISF. Joe Kane Productions. Joe Kane used to be doing trainings. All the manufacturers used to do trainings. Right now, there really isn't any.
Right.
So all that the rep has to lift that, because you can't have, and you can't have an ignorant business partner,
Right.
because then there'll be mistakes, and there's mistakes. There's more uh, burden on all parties. The rep has to be involved. The manufacturer has to replace products. The dealer was going to lose time and lose credibility and money. So, so I think that all that, if you don't have a showroom, now the rep has to carry product to go and do a demo. The problem is that if you're doing a demo at an end user's home, as an example, it's not a controlled demo. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. So you'll do it, but it's not necessarily, most of the times, it's not going to end up in a positive.
Right.
I think that it'll end up in a sale because the end user gets impressed that you actually took the time to do it
Yeah.
in many
Yeah.
cases. But again, though, so if you have it in a showroom, then you could actually control the environment and do it right. But so all that now lays on the rep. I think the accounting part. We are very strict to that with our manufacturer. We tell them we're not doing collections for you. We just don't do that. And I think that that's because we don't want our business partners to think, oh, this guy's trying to call me to collect.
Right.
So we don't want to build that kind of a
Well,
reputation.
it goes back to the relationship, right? And kind of, wanting to maintain that strong relationship with, obviously, on the manufacturer side, but the business partners and dealers that you work with have to understand the importance and the value and seeing it. I think too, you mentioned that education that kind of puts, I think a bigger emphasis kind of on the importance of having a strong relationship with your rep firm, because they can be they become the go-to for that education, right? If it's not out there, you're there to provide it. Whether they're coming to you or you're proactively going to them offering, or letting them know about educational opportunities that exist, right?
That is correct. And I
Yeah.
tell you, I mean, in many cases, a lot of the new dealers, they're not used to perhaps the certain amount of education. So our job is to let them know.
Yeah.
Communication, right? Some dealers like, stop emailing me about this. I was like, no, I can't. I mean, if you want to, I mean,
You're not going
I
to hear
can't.
about it from anywhere else.
And honestly, I don't think it's selfish. It's the fact that if the dealer is educated, they are going to sell more, not only more projects, but higher end projects. And it doesn't have to be high end. It's just to fit what the end user is trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's good for them. As I said earlier, everything that we do, and this is not at all a statement that is untrue. Everything that we do is with a one purpose, and that's to make integrators more successful. That's the only way that we are going to be successful. So we may come across differently, but at the end of the day, all we want is for the integrator to be successful. So if they somehow understand that, I think that they would make the job of a rep easier.
Yeah. Well, so the job of the rep, right? I think and we've had this conversation before too, just how there's some misconceptions out there. And it kind of alluded to that at the top, right? So I want to give you kind of the chance. What are some of the biggest, misconceptions out there that exist? And I kind of want to give you the floor to clear them up, if you will.
Certainly, I've been, as I said earlier, look, I've been, sometimes it's frustrating, right? But I've been lucky enough that I was able to build some strong relationship with other reps. The old timers like Dave Thomas, Peter Dryoff. I'm saying old timers because they've been in business for a long time. Brett Niederman, and anyhow, throughout the country, I've been blessed to have some really strong guidance because it does get frustrating. And I think in our industry, everything, not blaming it on CEDIA, but I think that they have a strong responsibility on this, that everything that you see highlighted, it's going to be manufactured and dealer. Completely avoid this, the rep and distribution, and in the middle now buying groups.
Yeah.
And I think, look, if you have to make sure that your car has, I mean, hopefully your car has four wheels, but all four wheels have tires. So the process, it's driving the same direction, or it's easier to drive your car. So what I'm saying is that a lot of newer dealers do not understand. One, as I said earlier, all we want is for them to be successful. Two, they believe that if we are in part of the equation, that their cost is going to be higher.
Right.
They're like, no, I want to be direct. Well, it's my job. The job of the rep is to qualify the dealer. If he believes that it is the right dealer, that dealer application gets approved. If he doesn't believe that he's the right partner, that dealer application is going to get denied. So anyhow, a lot of the times, I think dealers just don't understand that, but it's because if there is a lack of education from our channel, or a lack of perhaps exposure.
Yeah.
So it's very, because of that, when you go and knock on a door, there's a lot of dealers that are not necessarily, you really have to prove yourself in order for them to open up to you.
Right.
And that's wasted time. If everybody was to understand what I guess we want to achieve, I think that there would be a lot easier to get that door open.
Yeah. Well, I want to give you the chance too, in the closing moments here. We've talked a lot about it, and I think people listening, you kind of, there's a lot that you do that is not, necessarily understood. So if you had to boil it down, and to your point about a dealer should understand kind of what the goal is you have in mind, if you had to boil it down to that sort of one statement, to prove to them, sort of where you fit in the equation and why you fit in the equation. what would you say, or what would be that statement that you'd give them to kind of hopefully get over that initial conversation and get that time back?
So I think that partnership, you have to understand that the manufacturing stuff, the rep is making you aware of everything that it's going on and will help you. There's a lot of reps that are extremely smart when it comes to business. So they will, and also they have their relationships with another 400 accounts that do exactly what you do as a dealer. So they learn from other dealers and they could guide the dealer. As I said before, all we want is we want to help that dealer become a solid business person. So we could get the benefits from that as well. So I think partnership, a good business partner is what you should be thinking of your independent rep every time that you see him come by. You're not wasting your time. When they come, if they may not have a lot about one brand, but when you put it as a package, I think that meaning multiple brands, I think that every dealer is going to get a lot from their business partner or the rep.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, you are essentially the eyes and ears to over a dozen different brands for that dealer. So you want to talk about, I know, kind of bring in a full circle. You talk about saving time. Yeah, that's you're not having to go off to talk to one individual person who's there representing one brand. You're talking to an entire package while you're in their stores. So not only education, of course, but saving them time by giving them access to that entire line card while you're there in their location,
And I
or
would
they're
say
talking to them.
the entire solution for you. I mean, because if you're talking about power, you're talking about lighting, you're
Yeah.
talking about all throughout the home entertainment, whether it is video, audio. So we have a complete package, and most reps will. So we could save the dealers a ton of time. They could become so much more efficient if they get the rep involved. And again, keeping in mind, as I said, and I said it again, we just want we just want the dealers to be successful.
I
So
love it.
yeah.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Fun conversation, and one that I knew we wouldn't have any problems filling up some time. So I appreciate you taking the time, and kind of shedding a light, because it's one that, to your point, it doesn't get talked about enough, and
Well,
certainly happy to at least initiate the conversation, right, and start it moving in the right direction.
and I tell you, we kind of, as an industry, we need to do something about it, because there's a lot of territories that our reps got older and they retire, and there's no one coming behind it. Because, of course, perhaps it is time to adjust the pay infrastructure.
Right.
There's a lot of manufacturers that are going to be hurting if we run out of reps. There's not that many territories where there is young rep firms coming. So if it's coming to an end, manufacturers have to do their own sales in certain territories. That keeps them. That's just not overall. It's not beneficial for the industry.
No, important point for sure. So starting to have these conversations now, hopefully, no problems that can be avoided down the road. But only one of many. We'll be talking again for sure, I feel. So something tells me that might be happening. So Joaquin, I appreciate it, man. This was a lot of fun diving into this with you. And like I said, I'm sure we'll be doing it again.
Well, thank you for making the time, my friend. I appreciate you, Rob.
Absolutely. Awesome. And thanks again to Joaquin. Just a great guy. Like we said at the top, an awesome opportunity to reconnect with people in this industry that, I go back a bit with. So excited to be able to do that in the form of a podcast. And like we said, kick off hopefully some important conversations around the role of reps, and, shake some of those misconceptions for him. Because, at the end of the day, the famous quote within this space is that the high tide rises all ships. And that is certainly the case when it comes to rep firms and the work they do on behalf of custom integrators and dealers out there. So appreciate him taking that time and diving into this conversation with us. And as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast. And we'll catch you next time.